What if I told you that the UK government's own immigration experts just publicly admitted that the proposed settlement system might be legal, but not morally correct? Because that's exactly what happened. In January 2026, during a one-hour parliamentary hearing, members of the Migration Advisory Committee, the economists and migration experts who analyze data and directly advise the UK government, sat in front of the Home Affairs Committee and did something extraordinary. They outlined 10 major systemic flaws in the proposed Indefinite Leave to Remain reforms. Not activists, not protest groups, not opinion pieces, the government's own advisors. And despite hearing detailed warnings about unfairness, exploitation risks, gender inequality, child hardship, and wage suppression, the government appears ready to move forward. Today on GoUKGo, we're breaking down exactly what was said, what those 10 flaws mean for you, and the one overlooked strategy that could dramatically change your settlement timeline. If you're an international worker in the UK, this is not optional information. This directly affects your future. Let's start with why this hearing matters so much. The Migration Advisory Committee, or MAC, is not a political campaign group. It's an independent panel of economists, labor market specialists, and migration researchers. When the government wants evidence on the economic impact of immigration changes, they turn to MAC. Historically, MAC recommendations often shape policy. So when MAC identifies structural flaws in a proposal, policymakers usually take notice. But during this hearing, something unusual happened. One committee member stated clearly on the parliamentary record that while the proposals may be legally defensible, they are not morally correct. That is an extraordinary statement from a government advisor. Now, let's walk through the 10 flaws they identified, because each one reveals how this system may actually function in real life, not just on paper. The first major flaw is what many are calling the dependent visa trap, particularly affecting nurses. Nursing is officially classified as a highly skilled profession eligible for a 5-year settlement pathway. On paper, that sounds reassuring. But here's the reality. Many nurses in the UK are not the main visa holders. They're dependents of skilled workers in other sectors. If the primary applicant works in a role classified as medium-skilled under the proposed framework and faces a 15-year settlement timeline, the dependent nurse inherits that longer route, even though nursing itself qualifies for 5 years. So you could be a qualified nurse, contributing to the NHS, but still wait 15 years for settlement because of your spouse's job classification. The Royal College of Nursing has already warned about potential large-scale departures from the UK workforce. This structural contradiction is part of the reason why. The second flaw is the disproportionate impact on women. The committee highlighted that women are statistically more likely to be dependents rather than primary applicants. They are also more likely to reduce working hours or temporarily leave employment due to childcare responsibilities. Under the proposed mandatory work consistency requirements, which may demand 3 to 5 continuous years of employment, many women could see their settlement clock extended simply because they paused work to care for children. This creates a systemic disadvantage. The experts acknowledged it. They recognized that the structure penalizes caregiving, something overwhelmingly undertaken by women. The third flaw centers on household income versus individual income. Imagine this scenario. One spouse earns £60,000 per year. The other earns £10,000 part-time while managing childcare. As a household, they contribute £70,000 annually. They pay taxes. They claim no public funds. But under an individual income assessment model, the higher earner qualifies faster, potentially at 5 years, while the lower earner could face a 10-year route or even disqualification. The experts flagged this as a major fairness issue. Now the government is reportedly considering household-based calculations to address it, but that adds complexity to an already complicated framework. The fourth flaw might be the most visibly illogical: the SOC code injustice. Here's how it works. A software developer earning £80,000 annually qualifies for settlement in 5 years because the role is classified at RQF level 6 or above. A hotel manager earning £90,000, more money, more tax, potentially more responsibility, may face a 15-year route simply because hotel management doesn't require a university degree and falls below RQF level 6. Higher earnings, greater economic contribution, longer wait. The committee questioned whether job classification alone should override real economic impact. If the system claims to reward contribution, this contradiction is hard to defend. The fifth flaw concerns children, potentially hundreds of thousands of them. Extending settlement timelines from 5 years to 10 or 15 years means families must repeatedly renew visas every 2 years. Each renewal involves application fees, immigration health surcharge payments, and administrative costs. Over a decade or more, families may spend tens of thousands of pounds. For children approaching university age, lacking settled status could mean paying international tuition fees instead of domestic rates. The committee emphasized that children are the most vulnerable stakeholders in this process. They have no control over visa categories, income thresholds, or classification rules, yet their futures are directly affected. The sixth flaw is employer exploitation through wage suppression. The proposed £50,000 threshold is meant to reward higher earners with faster settlement, but the committee warned about unintended incentives. If an employer knows that paying £50,000 unlocks a 5-year route, after which a worker gains freedom to change jobs, there is a financial incentive to keep salaries just below that line. £49,000 keeps the worker tied to sponsorship. £50,000 potentially sets them free sooner. Instead of raising wages, the system could unintentionally encourage employers to cap them. That outcome directly contradicts the policy's stated intention. The seventh flaw involves care workers. The UK has a well-documented care sector shortage. British workers often avoid these roles. International care workers fill critical gaps. Yet, under the proposals, many could face 15-year settlement timelines. MPs have reported cases of poor working conditions, exploitation risks, and severe anxiety among care workers uncertain about their future. When a worker's entire immigration status depends on staying in one sector for 15 years, leverage shifts heavily toward employers. The committee raised serious concerns about the mental health consequences of prolonged insecurity. The eighth flaw focuses on NHS Band 3 and 4 roles. Many of these workers are on development pathways toward becoming fully qualified nurses. The NHS invests in training them. But since these roles were moved under different visa classifications, they may now fall into medium-skilled categories. If someone begins in Band 4 and later qualifies as a nurse, does their settlement clock reset? Can they switch categories without losing time? The framework lacks clarity. That uncertainty creates instability for workers and for the NHS itself. The ninth flaw highlights public versus private sector inequality. A doctor working in the NHS might qualify faster than a doctor doing identical work in a private hospital. A teacher in a state school could have a different pathway than one in a private institution. The work is similar. The contribution is similar. The employer differs. The committee questioned whether that distinction is defensible. The 10th flaw addresses cost and complexity. Longer timelines mean repeated applications, repeated fees, repeated compliance requirements. The UK is already among the most expensive immigration systems globally. Extending routes to 10 or 15 years compounds that burden. If the government's goal is to attract global talent, complexity and cost send the opposite message. So where does this leave you? The experts have laid out 10 structural concerns. The government has heard them, and unless last-minute consultation changes occur, many of these elements may be implemented. But within the proposals lies one mechanism that could significantly alter outcomes: volunteering. Under the proposed point-based enhancements, sustained volunteering with registered charities may reduce settlement timelines. Details are not finalized, but the principle is acknowledged. Consistent, documented community contribution could potentially shorten your route. This is not speculation. It was discussed in the policy framework. If you are already in the UK and you are eligible to volunteer, documenting structured volunteer work with registered charities could become one of the most strategic moves you make. We are entering a period where proactive positioning matters. Now let's recap clearly. Dependent nurses may be locked into longer routes despite working in 5-year professions. Women could face structural disadvantages tied to caregiving patterns. Households may be split across settlement timelines due to individual income calculations. Job classification may override actual economic contribution. Children could face financial hardship and educational limitations. Employers may be incentivized to suppress wages below key thresholds. Care workers risk long-term vulnerability and exploitation. NHS development staff face classification uncertainty. Public versus private sector workers may experience unequal treatment. And overall, costs and complexity could escalate dramatically. These aren't online rumors. These were the expert assessments presented to Parliament. As the end of March announcement approaches, clarity will emerge. On GoUKGo, we will analyze every detail the moment the government releases its official response. If you found this breakdown valuable, make sure you subscribe to GoUKGo so you don't miss that analysis. Comment below, which of these flaws impacts your situation most directly? Are you in a dependent route? Are you near the £50,000 threshold? Are you considering volunteering? Share this video with other international professionals who need to understand what's coming. This is not about panic. It's about preparation. Immigration systems evolve, policies shift, but informed decisions create leverage. The experts have spoken. Now it's time for you to position yourself strategically. This is GoUKGo, where we don't just report immigration news, we break it down so you can navigate it intelligently. I'll see you in the next analysis the moment the official announcement drops. Until then, stay informed, document everything, and move strategically.